Hey there, Sports History fans. Arnie Chapman here from the Sports History Network to share with you an awesome announcement. Now dig on this. 4 of our amazing podcasts have clinched spots in the final round of the Sports Podcast Awards, and we need your support to take home the trophy. First up, we've got Basketball History 101 driving the lane in the Best Basketball category. Then on deck, we've got Orville Mulligan Sports Writer. He's cracking up the competition in the Best Sports Comedy category. Marty's Illegal Stick is dominating the ice next in the Best Hockey category. And last but not least, we have Wrestling with Heels on powerbombing its way to victory in the Best Wrestling category. Now, again, we're counting on you to cast your vote and help out these incredible podcasters secure their well-deserved recognition. It's super easy. All you gotta do is head over to the dedicated landing page. That's at sportshistorynetwork.com/vote. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/vote. Now, let's take another look at sports yesteryear with this episode brought to you by, of course, the Sports History Network.
Right now, we're in the thick of college bowl season. Teams looking for a championship. One of those is from the Big Ten. Another one is going to be joining the Big Ten as we approach into the national championship. So let's look at the very first Big Ten championship game as told by our friend Timothy P. Brown of FootballArchaeology.com. Coming up in just a moment.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history on a day-to-day basis. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time. So as we come out of the tunnel of the Sports History Network, let's take the field and go no huddle through the portal of positive gridiron history with PigskinDispatch.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of PigskinDispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pigpen, your portal to positive football history, and welcome to another Tuesday with FootballArchaeology.com's Timothy P. Brown. Tim, welcome back to the Pigpen.
Thank you, sir. Looking forward to talking about old-time football and sometimes what's old is new again. And I think this is one of those instances.
I think you're absolutely correct because, of course, our topic tonight is a tidbit you put out in December of 2022 called the Big Ten's First Conference Championship Game. And we're just coming out of these championship games and getting ready for the bowl season as this is airing. And so what an appropriate time of the year to talk about the Big Ten Championship. So what do you got on this?
Yes, this is one. So this occurred in 1931, and I've written a couple things about 1931 recently. I did a story not too far back about Wisconsin and Minnesota, and they're playing a game, the end of the season game in 1931, and I mentioned in that was a season where a couple of Big Ten teams, including Wisconsin and Minnesota, started the season playing doubleheaders. And I've got a whole other tidbit written on that so people can find. But, back in the mid-20s to mid-30s, there was this whole slew of people, teams playing doubleheader football games. And, what they do is they kind of had one game set up against a lesser opponent that their second team would play, and then they play the varsity against, also a lesser team. So it's like basically 2 bye games for the price of one is what it came down to. So it's just, that really doesn't have anything to do with the story other than to just set the stage that scheduling and, the game was just different back then. They did some things that we would never think about doing today. No one would schedule a doubleheader. But that 1931, still, depths of the Depression. So there were a fair number of college teams and pro teams did this as well. They'd play exhibition games to try to, raise money, and they donate all the proceeds to charity. And so the Big Ten that year decided And I think they decided real close to the end of the season. They decided that they were going to extend the season by one game, and play every team would play another game, and so they took against other Big Ten opponents. And so those were the days where teams didn't they didn't play round robin schedules or anything approaching that. Everybody scheduled themselves independently, and so the regular season ended with Purdue at 4-1, having lost to Wisconsin. Michigan was 4-1, at least in conference, having lost to Ohio State, and then they tied Michigan State in the non-conference because Michigan State wasn't in the conference then. And finally we had the Northwestern Wildcats at 5-0. They had tied Notre Dame, not a Big Ten team. So the regular season ended with Northwestern as the undisputed champs, because they just based it on win percentage at the time. But when they decided to play, they collectively said, yeah, we're going to play another game. And they also decided what we're going to do is these games are going to count. We want them to be meaningful. So they're going to count as a regular season game, at least, in terms of determining the conference championship. So they scheduled, with 10 teams, they set up Ohio State at Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Northwestern and Purdue at Soldier Field. And then the other 4 teams played that Saturday at Chicago's Stag Field, but they only played a half a game. So, it's one of those kind of goofy things. Today, preparing, for this, I went back and looked at the official conference results, like just to see like the all-time results. Michigan just won their 1,000th game, right? First college team to do that. And so I was just looking at things like, wait, did this game after the season count or not? These doubleheader games always counted, but those half games, none of the teams that played the half games count those towards their all-time record. But the 6 teams that played the full games, that extra week.
So Michigan technically might have like 1,001.5 wins to their credit, or
well, no,
something
because
crazy
they played one of the full games.
Michigan played one of the full games.
So,
okay, all right.
Yeah. So some of the other teams could have a half a game, but others would have lost a half a game. And then there were ties. One of those games was a tie, so it was a tied half game.
A tie half game. Oh boy! Good thing it's not like hockey. How would you score that in hockey? Because you would get a half a point for that win or for the tie.
So, anyways, they play these games, and it turns out that Purdue beat Northwestern 7-0. So Purdue enters the game undefeated. They lose. So then they end up in a 3-way tie. Northwestern, Purdue, and Michigan all are 5-1 at the end of the season. And so it's kind of one of those things where, you never know how a season's going to end up until all the pads are put away one last time, right? You never know if a team's going to come back, if they're going to unexpectedly win a bowl game, upset, somebody who should have beaten them. You never know. So, and Northwestern thought they were Big Ten champs, and turned out that they weren't.
Well, you started off by saying the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I think going into next year, the Big Ten becomes the Wild West again of, teams from coast to coast in the conference. I think we should start a petition right now that we want the end of year exhibition half games brought back to the Big Ten. So it's just like it was, 90 years ago.
Yeah. The half games, I mean, I'm not sure exactly why they decided to go that route, but I'll actually have to go back and reread some of that stuff. But, to play a half game, for most of them at a neutral site makes it even more amusing.
I wonder if tickets were half price to get into those half games.
Well, fans still saw a full game because they saw 2 half games. But maybe what they did was they played them early enough like Chicago Stag Field is if you really wanted to, you could walk to Soldier Field from there. So maybe they played those games early in the morning on Saturday so that everybody could run over to catch catch Northwestern and Purdue at Soldier Field. So,
Wow, that is quite the story. There's a lot going on in that one, that's for sure.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
great.
I've got even more here on this sheet of paper that I'm looking at, but I didn't raise those issues.
Well,
Got
it's
a little
great.
convoluted.
It's great stuff, Tim, and you have these fascinating stories from yesteryear in football that are really enjoyable and fun to read, and some like this so you can sit back and laugh at and say, what were they thinking, type of things. But it's kind of interesting. I mean, if somebody advertised that right now that, hey, we're going to have a couple half games down at the local stadium, I'd buy a ticket and go see it. You get to see 4 football teams, so that'd be good stuff. But you do this each and every day on your tidbits, and it's just so interesting and fascinating, and sometimes makes you think and scratch your head all at the same time. Maybe you could share with the rest of the world here how they too can get involved with the tidbits and read these on a daily basis.
Yeah, so simplest thing is just go to footballarchaeology.com, hit subscribe. It's free, and if you do that, from then on you'll get an email every night at 7:00 Eastern with that day's story. And otherwise you can follow me on Twitter, on Substack, or on Threads, and or like I've said before, just bookmark it and come and visit whenever you're of a mind.
All right. Well, his name is Timothy P. Brown. His website, footballarchaeology.com. And Tim, we thank you once again for sharing with us this Tuesday, and we look forward to next Tuesday to talk to you once again about football's antiquity.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
That's all the football history we have today, folks. Join us back tomorrow for more of your football history. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by to listen to another episode here on the Sports History Network. Our podcasters are passionate about uncovering and sharing sports stories from yesteryear. And if you didn't know it already, we have over 30 shows across the network covering all sorts of sports history topics. In fact, here's a glimpse into one of our awesome podcasts here on the network. Do you wish you knew more about the 100 seasons of the NFL? You're in luck because you found the Football History Dude podcast, where each episode is a journey back in time to learn about the rich history of the NFL. From the founding of the league in an auto showroom, all the way to what it is today, America's favorite sport and a behemoth of an industry. My name is Arnie Chapman. Football is my passion, and I want you to come along with me each week to explore the yesteryear of the gridiron. So hop on board my DeLorean and let's get this baby up to 88 miles per hour. How about that? I bet you're super hyped to go listen to that new podcast, right? Well, to learn about this show and all the other podcasts on the network, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/podcasts. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/podcasts. Head over there today to find your next favorite sports history podcast.